500 lessons. That is a lot of Tuesdays, and here we are. But before we dig into what I've got for you today, I just want to say thank you. If this is your first Tuesday blues lesson, or if you've been with me for a while, this really means a lot to me that I get to do this and share some blues with you. So thank you. And yet today is definitely going to be a little bit different. It's not a how-to fingers on strings play this kind of a lesson. It's more pulling back and taking a look at what 500 Tuesday blues lessons have taught me about the blues, the guitar, and practice. And my hope is that in sharing these bigger lessons that just keep coming up for me, it'll help you out on your guitar journey. So let's get to it. In my early days on the guitar, I was drawn to Metallica, Megadeth, thrash metal, that sort of thing, and I loved playing solos. And for me and my friends, that meant just playing as fast as possible, cram as many notes as you could into a measure. But that didn't transfer so well to the blues when I got into that style of playing, because my favorite players, when I really listened to them, they could say a whole heck of a lot more with just a few notes. B.B. King comes to mind. And everything that I played just sounded really emotionless. And it wasn't until I started paring that down, and I still have to remind myself to do this, like just fewer notes. Settle down, John. When I strip away more, I get to the heart of the matter and things really say something. To me, that's something about the blues that's helped me play better. And sometimes less really is more, like my beloved train whistling. Just a few notes, but it says the blues right out of the gate. So to celebrate Tuesday Blues 500, I'm giving away the full tab to my most watched lesson. It's linked below, totally free. Just sign up. It's my way of saying thanks for being a part of this journey. For years, I would sit down with my guitar, run over the same old scale patterns, the same old licks and solos and songs, and call it practice. And it wasn't until I started the idea of teaching online that I knew I had to actually teach people how to get results. So I needed to get results for myself. And what was missing was a plan, a goal. I needed to have a point to each practice session. And then I needed to do something else. I needed to reflect on how that session went and adjust the plan for next time. And this sort of became this upward trending spiral that would help me actually get better. And that really came into focus when I read Anders Ericsson's book, Peak, which is sitting right there and has been for, I don't know, probably a couple of hundred lessons here on this channel, but it had a huge impact on me. The way we practice really matters if we're looking to get better. Absolutely nothing wrong with noodling and jamming and having fun. That has its purpose for sure, but if you want to get better at something, you need a plan, you need to do the thing, and then you need to reflect on how you did and adjust the plan. My favorite blues player is, hands down, Mississippi John Hurt. I absolutely love his style of picking and the way he packages everything that he does together into a song that just makes me happy. They're simple tunes for the most part, but we can't mistake that word simple for easy, because especially if you're into finger picking the guitar, there's almost nothing that's just easy. There's a lot of skills that have to add up to be able to play a simple melody, but simple does not equal easy. So if you're trying to play a simple tune and you find it difficult, I think that's okay, because there's often a lot of other skills that have to come together to play something that sounds so simple and still stands up as a great tune. I've been asked before, when did I learn guitar? And I think I know what the question really is getting at, but the truth is I haven't learned guitar. I thought I knew guitar in my 20s, in my 30s, and even now in my 40s, but the truth is you never learn it. You're always learning it. It's a journey, and there's always something that you can do to get better and to grow. And when you really love it, that's all you want to do. It's just keep going, keep growing, and keep learning. If I skip a week on the guitar, I can come right back next week and strum through my favorite Tom Petty songs, for example. But the technique that leaves me first and fast is always my finger picking skills. Now, they don't go to zero over the course of a week of not using them, but I do feel like things are a little bit tighter and not as fluid if I take a break from finger picking. So to help combat that, I keep some exercises in my regular warm-up routines just to keep reminding these fingers to do what they're told. But now, that actually helps me come back after a week a little bit stronger. Maybe I've lost a little bit, but not as much because I'm used to that regular workout. When I went full-time with BGI, I instantly had several hours a day that I could devote to the guitar, including not just BGI lessons, but my own practice. And I decided to use at least 2 hours every day to do something that I really wanted to get back into my skill basket, and that was shredding, speed picking. I hadn't done it in a long time, so I set a metronome, I got an exercise, and I just started cranking away for an hour, 2 hours at a time on some small, repetitive picking motions. You could probably see where this is going. I injured myself after about day 3. It was too much, too soon, and it took me out of commission for a few days while my finger had to heal up and rest. So going too hard, too fast can be a recipe for injury. Take things slowly and you can get there over time. That's a much smarter way to do things. I used to feel like I was falling behind if I missed a few days on the guitar, just like I was missing out. But over time, I've come to learn that breaks can be really good. Say it's a vacation or just time away where you can't practically take your guitar. Often I'll come back with a fresh mindset. And yeah, we talked about finger picking skills and they do tend to diminish a little bit for me, but I got my exercises that I can rely on to get them back. And now I'm getting them back with just this fresh energy that helps me come back stronger after a break. When I was a teenager, I read an interview of Joe Satriani's, and he was asked something along the lines of, how do we get your tone? And his answer was, tone is in the fingers, which was infuriating to me because I just wanted to buy his signature guitar, a couple pedals, and a nice amp and sound like Joe. But he was telling me that I couldn't. And it's taken me years to realize that that's really true. That is kind of how it works. The equipment doesn't make the player. The equipment almost doesn't matter, but it does matter a little bit, but maybe not in the way that you think. I think that our instrument needs to have a good setup. And for me, I've learned how to do the basics on my guitar because this box of wood, it changes, it moves with the seasons. And I can go from being able to play beautiful bar chords to missing some things and find out that the strings have just moved up a little bit. The action is a little higher than I'm used to. So to me, I put a large value on a good setup, whether I do it myself or I can take it to somebody. So if you have that option to take your guitar and get it set up by a professional, I highly recommend it. And if not, you can get a couple of basic tools and learn how to do it yourself. Just go slow and be careful. That's the disclaimer there. But it really pays to have your guitar set up properly. In the beginning, pressing the strings down just to get a note sets your fingers on fire, right? But you got to learn that over time, it takes a lot less pressure than you think to just pinch the string behind the fret and sound a clear note. And if I could go back and tell my younger self one thing, it is to grip the fretboard with just enough pressure to play the note, but not more, because on top of just leading to fatigue, there's a couple of practical reasons why you wouldn't want to do this. If you squeeze too hard, you can actually pull a note sharp, so you're going to sound slightly out of tune. But then the other thing is, if you're really gripped down, you just lose mobility. It's not as easy to move fluidly on the fretboard. So try on your guitar, loosening your grip a little bit. You still want a clean note, but you want to play with a light touch. Slide guitar just sounds cool to me. It always had. My first time that I can remember hearing slide guitar was a little known Leonard Skinner record called Endangered Species and a tune called Devil in the Bottle. I remember hearing this cool sort of dobro thing. I didn't know what it was then, but it sounded amazing. But I kind of put that to the side as something for others to do because it meant basically relearning the guitar with open tunings. But I wish that I would have gotten into slide sooner, especially when I got into the blues. It just is the blues. It sounds so great, but changing the tunings and really diving in and trying to learn that actually made me a better musician. It kind of broke patterns that I was used to and made me think more musically rather than just as a guitarist. So I highly recommend getting into slide if it's something that you're kind of even slightly interested in. It takes time, it takes some work, it takes some technique, but you can get there. And to me, it can open up a whole different part of your playing, even when you're not playing slide. I was pretty much allergic to music theory for the first decade of my time on the guitar, and I thought that chords and scales were, just things that I used. They didn't really matter. But when I finally took a look under the hood at what even makes up a scale, what makes up a chord, and I arrived at intervals. Learning the basic intervals, their sounds, their shapes on the fretboard has helped me more than just about anything else that I've ever learned on the guitar. Knowing what a major third sounds like and where to find one, knowing where that flat 7 is and how to really bring out the bluesiness of it has really helped me become a more competent and confident guitar player. So if you haven't really taken a look at the basic intervals, their sounds and shapes, I highly recommend it. I've seen arguments online between the caged group and the triads group. Which one's better, right? One is superior over the other. And you might have your opinion on that subject. I used to have mine, but over time I've come to see that they both work. And when I finally leaned into the caged method, which I was very resistant of, things started to click. But what's interesting is it wasn't just that I learned caged, it made me stronger in my triads. And I wonder if I had gone the reverse, if I learned caged first and then learned triads, would it reinforce? Because they're really rooted in the same thing, right? It's music, it's intervals, they're chords, and they're just two different ways to look at the same thing, how we organize and visualize the fretboard. And I've got a friend that loves to say that I want to learn things from multiple angles so that I know that I know that I know, And that to me rings true when it comes to having a good system like caged or a good system like triads of visualizing the fretboard. Having both has been really helpful to me in my playing. I think a lot of folks listen to complicated guitar material like, say, Pride and Joy by SRV and decide that that's not for them. They don't even try it because maybe they're a beginner or an intermediate player. That sounds really advanced. But over the last couple of years, I've started to realize that the blues in particular is scalable. So we can take a tune and scale it up or down to our level. And the cool thing is that if you take something complicated like Pride and Joy and come up with a more stripped down, straightforward, beginner-friendly version of it, you get to play the song that you like. And you don't have to stop there. It exists on that continuum of scalability. So as you grow as a guitarist, you can add different parts, different cool tricks and things to the song so that we get to scale it up as we grow. And the cool thing is if we approach even difficult material that way, we get to enjoy the journey with that material. We can divide up the subtle shades of the blues by where it came from. Delta blues, Chicago blues, Piedmont blues, Texas blues, right? It's a geography-based way of describing a sound. And yes, each one of those had its own characteristic sound. But now, I think as an online teacher of 14 years now at this point, the blues is universal. It knows no borders. We've got students from all over the world practicing and learning this music that resonates so deeply because it's so true, it's so raw, and it's so real. The blues just knows no border. As a beginner, I think patterns are great. Whether that's a picking pattern or a pentatonic pattern, we need those to just train up the basic skills. And patterns are really helpful up to a point. But at some point, we want to get beyond that. I can think of an example that tripped me up when I was working on Candyman, a tutorial of Mississippi John Hurt's performance, where he used his thumb to play the third string as a bass note. And my thumb just wouldn't do that. I'd spend so much time doing the alternating bass pattern, 5-4-6-4 thing, that it wouldn't go to the third string. I had to get outside of the pattern. And to me, I'm very glad that I did because doing that helped me be a little bit more musical, helped me be a little bit more creative. So yes, learn patterns, but learn when to break them. I do think they can lead to some really great moments on the guitar. Maybe it's coming from the heavy metal school of guitar that made me think that just flying up and down the neck was just the pinnacle. That was as cool as you could be. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I love seeing that today still. But to me, what is equally as interesting is staying in a single position in like a 5-fret area and being able to play some music that really goes somewhere. It takes a lot of skill, it takes deep understanding of the fretboard to get you there. So sometimes we need to fly up and down the neck, but other times it really pays to know your position and to know it well. I've been guilty of saying this at times in the past, but really saying just keep practicing, you'll get it, while it can be well-meaning, it might not be true, because if you just keep practicing something over and over again, you're going to make it a habit, and maybe you're making the wrong thing a habit. Whereas if you take a step back and take a look at why this thing isn't working for you, maybe it's a skill you need to practice, maybe there's a technique that's missing, then you can work on that thing. Just drill it and bring it up to speed, and then you get somewhere rather than just practicing over and over and spinning your wheels. Tell me if you've been here before. You work really hard on a part or a song and you finally conquer it. You put a big green check mark on it, and then maybe you play it a few more times and you put it on a shelf. You're like, I got that, we're good to go. But then you come back, whether it's a week or a month or several months later, and you cannot for the life of you remember how to do what you worked so hard for. That forgetting thing is real, and it's kind of painful when it happens. And so you might think that the way around that is to just play that song, that part over and over every single day, just drill it until it's impossible to forget. And I think maybe that can work. But there's another thing that I came across in a book called Make It Stick, and it was a study that proved that almost forgetting is really gold. So what we want to do is learn that song, put that check mark on it, put it on the shelf, but resurface it a few days later, and then a few days later, and then a few days later. We don't have to constantly play it ad nauseum, but what we can do is give it some time to where we're almost going to forget and then retrieve it, and that helps to put it into long-term memory, because science. When I first learned scales, I would learn to play patterns in all the positions all around the neck. And I think there's some value in that just to get the fingers moving on the fretboard. But it wasn't until I was challenged to play a scale in a different way that I really started to understand how it was constructed, just on a deeper level. Let's take our E major scale and play it along one string, say the open first string. And as you do, fret the notes and use just your index finger and physically move your hand. You're going to have to, if you use just your index finger, to feel and start to visualize those jumps. Go up and down on the fretboard. You start to hear the scale really come out, and we don't get lost in this across the string stuff. We just get right to the heart of it. And then we need to use it, which brings me to the next lesson. When you're learning something new, put it into action and do so before you think you're ready. That's how we really learn. We make it practical, and it's honestly a lot of fun versus just learning a scale. We actually make some music from a scale. But this applies to a new chord progression, a new rhythm, pretty much anything you can do. But as an example, we could take that E major scale up the first string, limiting ourselves, and try to make some music. Just using that scale. It helps you really know that you know the new material. Not every practice session needs to feel like a grind, like it's work. We can have some fun too, and I think it's really important that we do. And one of my favorite ways to do this is what I call focused noodling. So we get to practice and kind of jam and have some fun at the same time. The trick is that we're noodling and kind of creating, but we're doing so with a specific goal. Maybe there's a constraint to use just a certain scale, like maybe that one string scale in E or whatever it is, but we just kind of restrict ourselves to that. We put on a backing track and we jam, and that really helps us grow and have some fun while we're noodling. Of course, just some general jam sessions are absolutely fine to have as well. Fact is, I think you should have those. This might be the most important thing from this entire video, and that is sometimes we go through these periods where we don't want to play. Maybe something else in life just isn't quite right, or something's pulling us away from the instrument. That happens from time to time. It even happens to me, and this is what I do for a living. But I've learned that one thing brings me back better than anything else, and it brings me back with a really positive energy, and that is I'll sit and I'll listen to the music that I love. For me, that means putting on John Hurt, Charlie Patton, and the Eric Clapton Unplugged album, things like that, and they just really bring me back. It gives me that same sort of spark that I had that made me want to chase this particular way of playing the guitar. It's worked for me a few times over the years, and I hope that it'll work again if I get back to that spot. And maybe this will help you if you're kind of feeling a lull in your guitar journey. Put on some music, put no pressure on yourself to play, and for me, it's like a magnet just bringing me right back to the instrument and connecting me to what I love about the guitar. All right, this was definitely a little bit more uncomfortable for me. I'd rather just play the guitar and share the technical details, but I think that these things really matter. In some ways, they matter more than where to put your fingers and how to play this part on the guitar. These are the lessons that I've learned that help keep me coming back year after year, and hopefully for many more Tuesday Blues. So once again, thank you so much. And remember that as part of the Tuesday Blues 500, I'm giving away the tab for my most viewed Tuesday Blues lesson. So just sign up for that. If you're a premium member, you've already got it. And we've got a deep dive into that lesson as well. So thank you so much. And I'll see you around for another lesson. Until then, practice smart and play on.